Gakkou Gurashi started serialization in a small manga publication in 2012. It has since amassed a cult following and is generally well regarded as a mindfudge anime since its adaptation by Studio Lurch in 2015. So as usual, I disagree with the noobs and elitist scum that limit this anime as if insinuating that its merit lies solely in its shock value. It's safe to say that there will be spoilers for Gakkou Gurashi, aka School Live, and it's also worth mentioning that in the making of this video I have yet to read the manga, so don't spoil the manga at the very least in the comments. I personally don't really care about spoilers, but I know that there are a lot of people who are fussy about that stuff, so be considerate. First of all, let me tell you what I mean when I say I disagree with the notion that School Live's good parts are solely that of shock value. This is simply me saying that whilst it might be the reason that people start watching the show, I doubt that this is the reason many people keep watching, and whilst it's widely recognized that School Live is a great shock and horror anime, the current seasonal climate of the anime community leads me to believe that many won't find out about many shows that they would otherwise enjoy because of the pressures of staying relevant. The reason I say that the best part of School Live is not its shock value is simply because it is very hard for a concept to stay shocking for the entire duration of a series runtime unless it keeps escalating, which has its own set of problems which I will not address now. The point being, anyone who tells you that School Live is a mindfudge anime is correct if they are talking about the first few episodes, as there is this jarring sense of confusion given by the plot and by the contrast of the cute art style and the terrors faced by the main characters. Whilst the initial shock of seeing a child talking to herself in a dilapidated classroom wears off about midway through the second episode, the show replaces the shock first felt by introducing the threat that the characters are up against. This replaces the initial shock with fear. Many people define horror differently. Not really. But I believe it is media that aims to evoke a sense of fear in the viewer. This fear does not have to be for ourselves. It could be for the characters we are watching or for someone else. Really basic stuff, I know, but it works in support of all my points, so I'm sticking with it. Although my definition of horror might be basic, what I believe makes an engaging horror story is not just something that scares me. My top things to consider when writing a horror narrative is the 3 E's, which are establishment, characters, setting, and enemy; examination, are you using your visuals and score to the best effect? Are your characters' choices realistic? Enigma, show just enough of the enemy, characters, and plot so that people remain interested, but the fear of the unknown and the wish for answers must have progression. Space, the things the characters and the audience find out an appropriate amount, and those answers must be satisfying. Now I will go in depth in how School Live excels at the points I have just raised. Establishment. Let's talk about how the setting of School Live is established. From the title, or if you only know the Japanese title and don't speak their language, the first scene of the show. From the get-go, you know where these characters are and the types of things these girls can get their hands on, although the struggle isn't as real as you would think because the school is basically a bunker from the zombie apocalypse. But you know there's going to be desk blockades, food shortages, and a large population of zombies. Next, there's the characters. The girls never perform superhuman feats, and the creator clearly knows what high school girls are capable of and doesn't over or undersell their capabilities. Each of the 4 girls falls into a category: smart, sporty, motherly, and the Genki girl. This lets the audience know how the group's dynamic works, the roles each of the characters play, and the progression they could make, and what these characters will do when it comes down to the wire, and pleasantly surprises the audience when they do something unexpected. It also clues the audience into the character's way of thinking. Miki will think relatively logically, be good at making decisions and advancements to the group. She will not, most likely, be out in the way of danger, which is subverted, and suffers from some cowardice which she must overcome, whilst Kurumi will be athletic, dependable, and her job is to keep the group safe. Her courage and compassion also become her downfall as she almost becomes part of the zombie hordes. Yuri is the most outwardly mature and compassionate member of the group, although she still possesses a fun side, but she knows more than she lets on, and as a result of her understanding almost has to take Kurumi's life. Her job is to look after the group in domestic affairs. Yuki's position is difficult because whilst she does give her friends the strength to carry on, she doesn't really do anything. Like a lot of main characters, her position amongst amongst her friends is very singular. However, she does manage to shed being a liability and break free of her condition in time to assist Miki by leading the zombies away at the end of the series. This actually provides a form of enigma, as one might wonder how the dynamic of the group will change now that Yuki is out of La La Land. The enemy is also established very well as a slow-moving zombie who slightly remembers important details from their past. So standard zombie rules apply. Destroy the brain, don't get bit, you know the gist. The fact that school life uses such an iconic monster allows the story to skip past exposition that would otherwise be necessary if we were dealing with a lesser-known monster, and the audience are already familiar with the struggles that characters in these types of situations face, which allows the show to use this understanding as well as its mesh of horror and slice-of-life elements to address these situations in a different and refreshing way. The skipping of common zombie survivor story plot points is also given by having the story start a little while after the girls have adapted and settled into their routines, allowing us to get to the new stuff. Examination. Many people found that the end of the first episode was shocking when it is discovered that the cute hijinks of the characters were all imagined by Yuki. However, no one complains that this reveal is completely out of nowhere, like lesser twists out there. This is because there are numerous little hints that even those watching for the first time can pick up on. For instance, the first time I watched the episodes with some mates, we noticed that Yuki did not wake up in a dormitory, which would need to be present if the school allowed students to board, that they allowed for the students to take care of a dog inside the school building, and that their supposed repairs were taking place behind stacks of desks rather than the usual blockades and signs. There are also lots of more subtle details, like how Miki doesn't pay any attention to the teacher before Yuki addresses this, but her establishing shots in the opening and her body language would lead the audience to infer that she would be more formal and consider proper etiquette when entering a classroom. Or like how Kurumi carries around a shovel not just on the roof but inside the school as well, or how no one inquires why they are out of lesson. Megu not telling the girls about the stash of supplies sitting right under them in the basement whilst they were trapped on the roof is the most unrealistic character choice in the show, and it is still defendable. If we consider the stress they were under and the priority of survival as well as coming to terms with their newfound situation, it could be possible to hold off or forget telling the students about the basement, as their priority would be survival. Of course, this show has problems, even if they are not readily apparent. For example, the point I just raised about Megu not telling the club about the supplies that could save their lives. Whilst it could be defended, it's not believable. But that is by far the worst offence and doesn't tarnish the quality of the series as a whole. Enigma. There were some core mysteries that kept the intrigue alive. Why the school is so well stocked and why the apocalypse started. Many zombie shows don't explain the origin of the event. However, the reveal that the school was built in preparation for the upcoming end of society leads the viewer or reader to expect an explanation. There is also the aforementioned change in group dynamic brought on by the climax of the series, which just makes us want season 2 even more. The 3 E's don't just apply to horror narratives, they could work in examining any genre of fiction, and they do not encompass all of the work and aspects that goes into making any story. They just serve as one simple structure to analyze these works effectively, so feel free to use them in your own analysis. Before we finish, I would like to address some things that I haven't already covered because I deemed it necessary to give them their own portion of the video. These subjects are the characters and how they work as a unit, as well as how the setting of school life is also especially poignant. Characters. I have already addressed what the characters' roles are in the group, however the way they work together is unique in its own right. Yuri is not only the older sister figure of the group but also takes care of food production and supply control, giving her the most authority among the girls, reiterated by the fact that all of the other girls look up to her, whereas in a full-blown slice of life, these girls usually tend to take a back seat in decision-making, and in full-on zombie shows, like The Walking Dead, these characters change more in order to survive, often relinquishing their kindness and nurturing nature, as well as their humanity. Yuri doesn't do this. One could argue that she almost does when facing the dilemma of possibly having to kill Kurumi, but this, in my opinion, displays the opposite, as it is her humanity that gives her the conviction to understand Kurumi's wishes and not allow her to transform into a monster. Speaking of Kurumi, she basically serves as the handyman and security for the group. Her courage gets the best of her and ultimately causes suffering for the group, especially Yuri, in combination with her own kindness. But but also brings about a great change in the group, leading to Miki coming out of her shell and doing what must be done, as well as Yuki finally being able to come to terms with her situation and basically cure her PTSD. Miki doesn't really do that much until Kurumi gets bitten, apart from a few bits and bobs here and there, and keeping Yuki out of danger. But what else should she do? All other roles are fulfilled by capable people, yet she is still necessary, considering that they would have to dress it up if either Yuri or Kurumi needed Yuki to do something, and they can't babysit her either, meaning that Miki potentially saved Yuki's life multiple times by stopping her from leaving the protected area. In most Moablob, there isn't anyone usually who has to go through the trauma of the apocalypse, and Yuki's condition, whilst it has to be ensured that she didn't stray from the safe part of the school or come in contact with any of the undead, her optimism and her personality not being altered by the end of the world allowed the other girls to also maintain hope that things will get better, as well as find some escape and respite from having to watch your friends, classmates and teachers shamble around in a daze, thirsting for blood and fearing for your life all the time, and that has meaning in its own right. All the characters maintain a lot of empathy and consideration for others. Kurumi goes out of her way to save Toromaru after the stupid dog ran out of safety. Yuri honors Kurumi's wishes of not wanting to be left as a zombie. Miki decides to go into the basement because she knows that other girls would not be emotionally capable of killing Megu, and Yuki shows consistent consideration towards everyone, even the zombies at the climax of the series, and saves everyone. This kindness contrasts with the harsh backdrop and makes the idea of school children having to live in such a terrifying world add to the suspense. Setting. The show is set in a high school. Most people have attended one, so they know what it's like to be simultaneously carefree as one is just beginning life and really stressed out due to exams and being a teenager. This meshes well with the overall tone of the series, as it has the cute art style and character designs of typical slice of life anime with frightening subject matter. Yet the series still decides to incorporate heartwarming moments and humor. This gives the show a unique tone, similar to the extremes of being a teenager, which suits the heart of the series, because as much as School Life is a great horror anime, it really finds its footing as a coming of age story. That's it for this video. I know I don't upload regularly, I have my reasons for that. I hope you enjoyed the video anyway. Please leave your opinions on the topic and criticisms, as I would love to know how I can improve, as well as what you would like to see me cover next. Thank you very much for watching.